I visited Skyloft in Vintage Story. Kinda. This mod author created a Sky Islands mod for Vintage Story that I found literally the day it posted. And because I'm the person that I am, I figured why not try it out and see what happens. And if you want to try this mod out, it's called SO303, also known as Skies of 303. Now it should go without saying that yes, I have a problem. But it should also go without saying that yes, I will be using mods. In fact, the mod author recommends the use of some kind of sky traversal mod. Oh, and yeah, I'm spending 1 year here too. I'll have a list of all the mods that I'm using in the description below. Okay, enough. Let's get to the game. I mean... So you probably know how this goes by now. We gotta get sticks and rocks so that we can make tools, so that we can make a shelter, so that we can survive overnight. Simple. I saw some chickens, so I made this fenced-in area and tried to spook them in, but I think one of them fell off the map, so I only have this rooster. A lucky find, I guess, but it would still be better if I had the hen. My first house wasn't anything special, it was just a basic hole in the ground with a dirt roof. And no, I don't have terrain stability on. I really wanted to do it, but I tried it, and the game can't handle that. It lags like crazy, but obviously for a good reason, and the stuff doesn't fall all the way down until you get down to a lower level, eventually making it off of the map. I took some time to explore the bottom or under section of the main island that I started on, and I found zinc, but I didn't really find anything else, no copper or anything that I could really use to make tools, so I'm kinda stuck here for the moment. You'll see I'll be using cob a lot in this challenge, and that's because I really like the conversion ratio, 4 dirt and 5 grass, but for 10 cob, which is just so good when you have a limited amount of space to work with. I found a few crops to get a basic farm started, but it's not going to be enough because there's really nothing on this island. Now, the mod author mentions that when you play this, you're probably going to spawn in the void, so for me, I just spawned and flew over to the nearest island, which was this one, and then set my spawn there. I figured I'd mention that, though, because, well, if you want to play it, that's probably going to happen to you too. And now the farm is done. And yes, I mean done, because water doesn't actually really spawn in this map. Funny story, I was just talking to another mod author not that long ago, and she mentioned that she was looking into something like this. And the reason why water can't really spawn like that is because you'll get stuff like floating oceans. So instead, this mod author made it so that there's basically no water except for in the mountains, but he did balance it by making it so that cattails and Tool don't need a water source in order to spawn. So that's kind of cool, and it means that I can actually, get some storage maybe. Seeing as how this spawn wasn't actually very good, I had to land bridge across from one landmass to the other. I saw something down here that looked a little more promising, so that's exactly what I'm doing. And this took a while.
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting, and they had to hire a new one.
Okay, not really, but I really am trying to bridge here. I'm just starving to death and shaking so bad that I kinda can't even block my way over to here. And while I get close, it's not close enough. I make it over here, and I really try, but I just can't. Yes, I starve to death after I make it to this island, which really sucks, because I was trying to go as deathless as I possibly could. This now brings me to my next section here where I'm going to talk about the other settings I have enabled. Yes, I have keep inventory on. I was not about to fall off the map and lose everything because I got attacked and pushed off a block while I was trying to land bridge. Not happening. And obviously, with that statement, this is not a hardcore world. Someday in the future, maybe, but first time playing, not happening either. That's going to make some people disappointed, I know, because in my Arctic video, I did get a couple comments from people saying, how's it a challenge if you're just gonna die all the time? Cut me some slack, man. I haven't even played this game for a year yet. I'll get there. But in the meantime, I'm still new enough that I'm toggling settings in my menus when I'm creating worlds, and I don't actually know what they do half the time. And yes, I know the wiki exists to tell me about some of those settings, but the descriptions aren't always helpful. Anyway, once I respawn and make it back over there, it's actually an extremely productive day. I get over there and I'm able to build a house, build a farm, find crops, and get chickens stuck into a pit I made when I was trying to get extra dirt. And there's already more food over here than was on the main island, so this is already shaping up to be a good move. The next day didn't go quite as well. After making it over to this new landmass, which was looking to be much better than my first one, I still haven't found any clay. And yes, I confirmed in my testing before I recorded this that clay does spawn in this map. That meant I was searching for clay in areas that I thought there might be some, and I thought the mountains might be a good start because sometimes you can see clay easier that way. And yeah, I know it depends on precipitation and a bunch of other factors, but there was water on my map here from what I could see, so I figured, why the heck not, let's go ahead and try that. I finally made it to a vertical section of the mountain so that I could get over there easier, and then there was no clay that I could see at this height or any other. So that meant it was back to panning. This feels familiar, and while I did search the other land masses, I couldn't find any clay anywhere, so this was basically the rotation for the next couple of days. Panning, starving to death, panning, and starving to death. And no, there really wasn't much I could do about that because of how I spawned, where I spawned, and the fact that none of my crops had grown yet and no berry bushes decided to fruit yet. This is really all I could do until something decided to actually give me food. And that includes animals too. I wasn't going to kill the chickens that I had, there were no other creatures on my landmass or the nearby landmasses that I had bridged to, and all the predators that were on my original one when I started fell into the void at some point. I suppose I could have done like what I did in the Arctic Challenge and sat in my house for a few days waiting for things to flower or grow, and since I'm playing with shortened months, I really wanted to make as much progress as I could, so I figured I'd use the starvation to my advantage. Finally, some crops had grown, so I was able to go explore a little bit more, and I noticed some cattails. These were my first ever cattails of this playthrough, so I was really excited and immediately began to bridge down and try to get down there somewhat safely. There were only 2 of them, so that wasn't very good, but at least eventually I would make some sort of progress. But yeah, it kinda sucks not having any storage. So it was off to precariously building another bridge across the gap so that I could hopefully find some new stuff. And thankfully I chose this location because I found more cattails. I was super excited because this one had 13 of them, which was gonna be enough for a basket. This area also included some hot springs, which is crazy. This is 2 for 2 now on my videos, and I couldn't believe that there were hot springs here. There were also a ton more cattails too, so I was well stocked. After consulting with Gracie, she told me I should move on to the next area, so that's exactly what I did. Never question the wisdom of cats. It was worth it. Oh! 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 No way! That's right. Red clay. And so began the Great Clay Moldening. I'm so happy I found this. I was really thinking I was going to have to pan gravel for days until I got blue clay out of it. And with 4 pit kilns going, it was time for me to get off for the night, but I was so hopeful for the next session, ready to play and eager to play the next day. All that clay finally allowed me to make some copper tools, and I got to work on a nearby copper vein that I spotted multiple days ago, but finally I was able to have much more copper, and not just from panning. Now that it's nighttime, let's talk about a mistake I made. Do you remember those settings I talked about? I already hinted at it earlier, but in case you didn't see it, I'm talking about these settings. The one about story. When I was testing out this world and generating it with story content, I noticed I got a couple of errors on my screen. So when I started this world, I decided to disable all story content, because I figured, hey, if there's an error, I don't want to run into a crash and lose all my progress. Now, I'm someone who hasn't actually beaten Vintage Story yet, and by that I mean the story content. I've only done a little bit. That's mostly because the world I decided to do it on is a world with no map, wilderness survival settings, and a 1,000 block spawn radius. So it takes a minute, and I've been making YouTube videos instead. I also, in toggling that, understood that things like ruins and traders would be gone, so I figured, hey, that would just make the challenge a little bit harder. I didn't realize that would disable all the enemies, since rifts in temporal storms actually still exist. And, on top of that, those same enemies that don't spawn normally through rifts do spawn during temporal storms, so it's not like they're not still in the game. The reason I bring this up is because you'll start to notice that I go out at night pretty regularly, and that's because I realized I wasn't getting attacked anymore. When I realized this, I seriously considered restarting everything, but I had just gotten the cattails and the clay and the copper that I needed for everything, and I really didn't want to restart and delay this video even longer. What this setting actually does is enable Homo sapiens mode, but still enabling temporal storms, the rifts, and enemies spawning during those. This is really cool, and I like that it's an option, but why lump enemy spawns with that? I get they're part of the story and everything, but it's not clear when they're enabled and when they're not. And it also doesn't disable rifts, instability, and storms like you would think it would, because those have their own toggleable options in the configuration area. And I could not figure out exactly what this specific toggle does to my game, but now I know. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that, as this will have an impact on a part 2 video that I do in the future. Now let's talk about what happened next. Pegasus! They do spawn! No way! Oh, I really thought I was gonna have to spawn something in. So during this entire time, while I've been land bridging from island to island, searching for cattails, looking for clay, I've had 2 mods installed for traversal purposes. One is Pegasus. The other is Draconis. Neither of them had been spawning anything in my world up to this point, and I really thought they were bugged due to the terrain generation. Seeing, though, that I wanted to showcase these mods because they're perfect for this environment, I was trying to think of ways to spawn them in my world naturally, something that would make sense, like maybe finding a certain resource, or defeating some kind of enemy or something, or maybe some deadline like a year in the world, but I wasn't sure, and I was still thinking about what to do when I spotted this Pegasus. Now, in order to get a Pegasus, you have to break it, like breaking a horse, and that means you have to get on its back multiple times until it's finally tamed. It does take a long time, and the best way to do that is going to be with a saddle. In fact, I'm not even sure if you can attempt it without a saddle, even though you can ride them, because what's the point? The current problem at the moment is that I don't have any leather. I haven't found any limestone or borax or chalk to be able to make lime water, so I can't tan hides, which means I can't get a saddle, which means I can't get this Pegasus. So, you can imagine what my next few days in this game were like after this. Earlier that same day, I happened to find some borax, which was really lucky, but unfortunately this borax vein, if you can call it that, only had 3 pieces. Now that's not going to be enough to make, I think, 26 pieces of leather is what you need for the saddle and the bridle that you need to be able to ride it. So this is not gonna work. Disappointing, but I'll have to keep searching. Just a fun little side note, you remember that dirt pit I had the black bear in earlier? Yeah, this is it now. I use this all the time to get the dirt I need to make the cob, so it just kinda keeps getting bigger and bigger as time goes on. The next few days of footage are just me searching for limestone. It's nowhere near me, spoiler alert. And because of that, I'm going to take some time right now to thank Lo-Phi, the composer of the soundtrack of this game. And for those of you unaware, that's what you're listening to right now. This particular song is called Radiance and Rust, and is one of the best soundtracks that this game has to offer. My personal favorite song of the soundtrack, though, is Arctic Winds, which is the Arctic track that plays only when you're in the Arctic biome, and I used that in my last video. So if you can, please go over and support Lo-Phi on YouTube and Bandcamp. You can pay for the soundtrack or you can download it for free. They're super generous about it, but please give them the support that they need. They deserve far more views and subscribers than what they have. I'm also going to take this time real quick to remind you all to check out the mods and the mod authors for those mods in my description. I'm going to have all of that listed there for you, that way you can find this and support them as well. These are extremely talented people, and they deserve recognition for the fantastic work that they've done. As this track finishes out on its best notes, I'm going to leave a montage here of me searching for limestone and get back with you here in just a minute. Okay, so I know that was a little bit longer of a segment, but basically I managed to get my limestone and leather working, I got a greenhouse set up, and I got this windmill tower completed. What you're seeing me build here now is a panning machine, which is one of my other favorite mods that I have in this playthrough because I figured I would need it given the terrain of this world. Panning as an early game resource is really important for a lot of people. Most people don't find enough bits to get started right away. They typically get into the panning mechanics, at least when they're new enough in the game, and then they start making tools and stuff from that. However, it just kinda dies off as soon as you get to like bronze or iron tier. Now, some people argue that panning is pretty overpowered, that the amount of resources you get out of it can be unbalanced, but I think that it's a fair trade in this case. And while, yes, it's gonna auto-pan for you, it's designed that even with a hopper, you can't just put stacks and stacks of gravel or sand on top of it and let it run forever. You need to throw in one stack at a time. And I think that, combined with the resource cost, is a very fair trade that will still allow people in the later game segments to enjoy the benefits of panning without necessarily having to waste the time involved with it. In my world, since I'm at a higher altitude at about Y150 instead of Y110, things are actually getting cold enough that it's starting to freeze, and that does stop the panning machine from functioning, it appears. At least from what I could tell. So that means I'm gonna have to insulate this in some sort of room so that it doesn't stop. I'm also playing a very dangerous game with my greenhouse at the moment. It's really cold, but I really want to try to get another harvest out, especially of flax. So some crops are starting to die, but I'm trying to grow stuff anyway. At this point, it's the end of October, and it's really cold outside. That, and I'm getting really tired of having to break my torches all the time to reset the timer so that I can keep the rooms lit up, so I'm finally making some torch holders. I got that zinc that I pointed out in the beginning and started going to work, but man, I really wish I had a helve hammer right now. But unfortunately, my wind power is busy panning, and I'd rather have that, so we're gonna make all these plates by hand. That's gonna be fun. The next project I have in mind is actually chiseling, so I'm gathering a bunch of wood right now, and I'm going to chisel while my leather finishes up so that I can get the Pegasus, but that's going to take several days, so we're just going to go grab a bunch of different wood and see if we can make that tower over there look a little better. Also, it hasn't come up yet, but I do have a pig farm. It's very basic right now, but I'm checking on them from time to time to see if I have any new piglets, because I think I just need a little bit more leather, and I'd rather just grab it from them if I can than go out and hunt. I also have this really large gap by my house that connects me to the pig farm, so I'm gonna fill that in over time. Though getting grass in the winter kinda sucks because you have to break the snow that it's hiding in, otherwise you just don't get the grass. It is now December 5th, and I will finally have the leather to get the Pegasus today. Yeah, I skipped a bunch of time because it took that long for the leather to be created. And yes, I'm using multiple barrels at the same time to try to get the leather done. Alright, so now it's time to tame the Pegasus. So what you have to do is you have to mount it and try to break it over 20 times so that you can get it to be tamed. Each time you make an attempt, it's going to try to buck you off, and every time that happens, you take damage. Or at least most of the time, it was a little inconsistent for me, but yeah, taking damage from a Pegasus 20 times tends to really hurt you, so you want healing poultices if you're going to attempt this. I found it best to just put some fences around it, put a roof over it so that it can't jump or fly out, and then just keep trying and trying and trying, healing occasionally until you finally get it. One of the mod authors for this told me that they shouldn't fly until you are able to control them and tell them to fly, but I wasn't taking any chances because this was literally the only Pegasus I saw this entire time. So yeah, I was super cautious and finally got it done. And man, can I say how amazing it feels to finally be able to traverse this map, like, appropriately. I mean, look at this view. This is awesome. This would take me several minutes just to get over to where the Pegasus was, and I'm just flying at a normal speed. It has a sprint that I can do, but you don't really need to when you're flying around from land to land unless you're trying to go a really long way. And I think the controls on it are really smooth and really nice, and I'm just ecstatic to be able to search every little island that I couldn't actually get to before. You never know what you're gonna find. You know, something like this. Oh my god! Holy... That's a dragon! I didn't think they would spawn! Remember, I also have the mod Draconis installed, which adds dragon eggs for me to hatch, but I hadn't found any, and I didn't know if this mod was working either, just like the Pegasus, since I hadn't seen any signs of it anywhere, and I've been playing for probably about 30 hours at this point. All you gotta do is carve the dead body of this dragon to claim it and get these dragon stones, which you need to make other dragon-related crafting items. In the base version of this mod, there are two types of dragons, if you will. There's a maple wing, which is a wyvern, and there's an alpine bone napper, which is an actual dragon. Currently in development, and one of the beta patches you can get of the mod, is one that includes a drake called the Coppertail, and he looks like this.
Look at this distinguished gentleman. Look at the way he is sitting. Yes, very distinguished.
He doesn't have wings, but he can carry more storage, and he's pretty fast for a land mount. Once you have your egg, to raise it, you just need to put it in a little enclosed area and put it on the ground. You actually want to have it away from fences and walls, which is something I didn't know until later, and that kind of delays the hatching process if you don't give it space. It will still incubate, but when it goes to hatch, it needs to have the space. The hatching process takes quite a bit of time, so you're going to be waiting for a while, and in that time, I'm just going to keep exploring. By the way, a really fun thing you should do if you have these mods is to fly around during a temporal storm. While yes, you could get attacked by Bowtorn or something, you get an incredible view of Dave's toes and the rest of the skybox. But come on, I know you want to see the toes. When you have a Pegasus, you have to be really careful though, they get spooked easily. As you see here, I was just getting a little bit of dirt and some snow fell and made it almost jump all the way off the map. Thankfully he was alive and I was able to recover him, but that was way too close. Having a Pegasus is a little bit like having X-ray turned on. You find so many resources on this map because they like to spawn at the edges, and I found several tin deposits and I found some iron this way. Iron, of course, being the best thing to find so that I can advance past the Bronze Age. And I also found fire clay like this. Now, since I was out, I decided to fly a really long way south, I flew 20,000 blocks south so that I could get to warmer climate. And yeah, this is actually my first time being in warmer climate ever in any of my playthroughs. So I found redwoods and I found some other plants and stuff, no crops or anything that were really super important. But I can see myself moving down here potentially for the next year. But that's probably going to take some time because I have to wait for the maple wing to raise. Now is when that chiseling I was talking about really got underway. It was now about April, I believe. Again, I never check my character status screen for some reason, so I can't actually tell you, but I can tell you it's not snowy outside anymore. Really what I'm doing now is waiting for the maple wing to hatch, because I know it's near the end of my 1 year here, and by the way, these are some shelves I made. I kind of like these. Let me know, I guess, if you like them. But anyway, yeah, I'm kind of killing time waiting for the maple wing to hatch. And Toblerone, or Toby for short, yes, that's what I named my Pegasus. Apparently I name my animals after foods. He's very helpful for this whole chiseling thing. Now, I spent a really long time trying to figure out what I wanted to make for a pattern in this chiseling thing. And thank God I have the Chisel Tools mod. That's probably the last mod that I haven't talked about yet. It lets me copy everything I need. It still takes a long time, but this would be unbearable with normal chiseling, at least to me, because I kind of can't chisel like that forever. And yeah, I'm not really happy on any of the patterns, but I think I settled for something like this. This is the end result, and I don't really love it, but I didn't want to make it too birchy or too piney, and I didn't want it to look super weird, so I don't know. I don't really love this. I probably won't save this windmill tower anyway if I do move, but yeah, oh well. At this point, I managed to kill enough time that it's actually June, approaching July, I believe, in this clip. I was trying to make another pen because I had some wolves that have been trapped in a little cave for months without food. So I decided to make a fenced-in area. I figured, what the heck, why not? I'm bored, and I'm still waiting for this maple wing to hatch, though it says it's hatching, so it should be any moment now. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never seen wolves that don't like to attack the player, but these guys took so many attempts, this is the winning attempt, to get them to chase me. And yeah, I died, but at this point it doesn't really matter if I die because I'm doing this just for fun while I'm waiting for the maple wing to hatch. I really don't have much more I want to do. Hatching the maple wing is basically the end of this playthrough. It did take like 10 minutes, but I finally got the wolves in here, and I like them. I like being able to see them and their AI interact with things, even if that is trying to eat me through the fence. It was taking so long to hatch the maple wing. It had said it was hatching for like 4 days now, so I went and looked on the mod page, and that's when I remembered them saying, make sure you keep it away from walls so that it has room to hatch. And lo and behold, you get it away from the wall, and maple wing! Just gonna put that fence back right there. Now it just needs to go through some growth stages. It's obviously not big enough to ride yet, and it will take several more days before it is ready. So in the meantime, I'll be using the Pegasus, but I'm gonna wait for the maple wing to grow up. And she is very cute. I love baby maple wings. They are amazing and adorable. I can't wait to go on adventures with the new maple wing when she grows up, and I have no idea why she does this, but I think that's also hilarious and cute too. But with her hatching marks the end of the 1 year and a little bit of extra time playthrough for this world. There will be a part 2 to this world because I just had way too much fun with the Pegasus and I can't wait to ride the maple wing, but unfortunately that will have to come later because I have other challenges to do as well for you guys. To round out this video, here is a once over the map that this playthrough was recorded on so that you guys can see what it was like. Hello everyone, this is Future Night. I wanted to do a little showcase of the property and everything. Sometimes when I do these cuts, it's really hard to figure out exactly where I am and what's going on and what the base looks like, and I thought this would be kind of cool just to go through and show you everything that I accomplished. So yeah, we've got obviously berry bushes and stuff for a farm, and this is the maple wing. I'm gonna need a name for her, so if anybody has any ideas on what to do, let me know. Something fun, something playful, maybe something like Skittles or something, I'm not sure. But she's going to need a fun name to fit with the food theme that I have for my other animals. Apparently, that's going to be my thing. Over here, obviously, is just a greenhouse. Nothing crazy. And then over here is my forge room. I like the shelves that I made. That was for me chiseling the thing for the windmill. Didn't really work out so well, but whatever. But yeah, I got this whole forge room here. And I did make an iron anvil and everything, but I didn't really think it was super important for me to talk about in the video, so I just kind of omitted that. Now, you'll see me here with my Pegasus. One thing I want to do is kind of just fly around and show you a couple things. So we got the cattails there. That's where I got all those and decided to grow those. Got the wolves. I guess if we want to name those, I'm going to need some names for that. So, again, something food-themed. Over here is a cave that I converted into a pit to trap things like wolves and bears. Got the chickens. And over here I've got that 3x3 bear pit that is now expanded into this with another black bear in it. I had to dig this out to get dirt to make all the cobs, so this is just kind of what it became over time. In fact, there's not really that much land anymore. And just kind of gliding around here, you can see I have some tree farms and whatnot, but that's not really important. I don't think I need to show you that. So instead, we're just going to head north here. And now here on the right, you'll see this bridge that I made. This was my first ever land bridge that connected my starter island to my home island that I'm living on. I think it's pretty nice, but it did take a long time to make, like I mentioned. Over here is my first house, you know, nothing special. A couple other things like larch trees there on the left, but over here is my spawn. Now remember, I fell into the void and whatnot, so I set my spawn over here, but that was that over there. That was my spawn, so now it's over here, and yeah, this has been my spawn. Sometimes you still spawn in the void every once in a while, but it didn't happen too often, so it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, something to be worried about and kind of cautious of at some point if you're going to be playing, like I said before. Now this bridge here is the longest bridge I ever had to make during this playthrough. It's about 650 blocks long or so, and when I made it, I couldn't even see up here, didn't even know that was a continent. I just kind of started bridging, and over time I noticed that there was more land, so I kept bridging, and that's why it ended up being so long. This landmass is really nice. Like, this is where I found the limestone, and it's a good landmass. I really am happy that I ended up making it over here. At first I went right, there's really nothing over there, so when I came back and went this way, limestone was pretty much straight ahead in those mountains over there. But overall, what makes this good is that there was so many crops and lots of animals to hunt, and I did come up here to get leather when I was running a bit short. When hunting, I had to be careful though, because the animals like to fall in the pits and stuff right there, so I tried to fill in those if I was hunting something. But this is really nice. On a map like this, there aren't huge open flat areas that aren't dangerous and full of bears a lot, so this was really nice. Now transitioning once again, I just wanted to show these little deposits here. While they might look like chalk or limestone, it's actually saltpeter that you can see from the surface, which is really cool. It's not common, I don't think, for that to spawn in normal game worlds, but because of the terrain generation and this stuff actually being really low, almost like as if you were supposed to be in a cave, that is actually like surface deposits of saltpeter, and it's everywhere across the map. Really cool, actually. Oh, and by the way, I found salt before I found limestone. Don't know how rare that is. I typically find both fairly often, but usually limestone first. Back at the base now, I thought I'd show you on my map kind of what this looks like. Anytime I had to fill in the void, I got this big brown splotch on the map, and that's just showing that I actually filled in a section that doesn't have any land under it. And as we fly over the pig pen, this is kind of the first bridge I made off of this land that I called home. I originally started over there and then kind of worked it over here to the mountain, because this mountain is where I saw the water where I could do the panning for the gravel and stuff like that. It's right there on my map. So yeah, I decided to make it over there so that I could get to early game panning and a water source should I need it. and then eventually followed this cliff edge around, came over to this landmass, and didn't really find much over here, just some berries and stuff, so I decided to actually end up going this way. And you see I hugged the mountain again. I made a little diagonal land bridge because that was kind of the fastest way to do this, and made it over to this landmass, which was where I found all the cattails and the hot springs. Now, if I would have been able to just fly or walk straight from my house over here, that would have been great, but it is quite a long distance, probably more than the 600 blocks I made for the big north bridge, and I wasn't going to do that again. But this landmass is also really nice for hunting and foraging and stuff, but because it's more forested, there's a good chance that you're going to have bears spawning, so it's a little bit more dangerous, and for that, I didn't really spend a lot of time here. I just grabbed the cattails and left, basically. After that, I found clay, as I mentioned in my video, and that ended up being me going back to that littler island and then connecting a bridge over here. This is also where I found the Pegasus. I didn't do too much bridging over here, but if we fly around, should be right over here somewhere. It's going to take me a minute to find it. Right there is where I got Toby, and trapped him for like several months while I waited for leather. I also went up that way and found some copper and some more gravel and stuff for panning, but ultimately the main thing that was over here was the Pegasus. It was shortly after I found the Pegasus, I found the Maple Wing, and I believe right there is where I found her. So that's where I got the egg, really not too far away. So you can see everything I did in this entire playthrough was on basically 5 to 6 little like island landmasses connected via bridges. Only after that did I go scout a little bit and fly south looking for a new base spot, but I really didn't exploit a lot of the resources except for the iron that I found since I could fly. But that was about it. Most of the playthrough was just on these landmasses. Kind of crazy, isn't it? When you really look at it, it was just within a nice little few thousand block range. And that, my friends, is the end of this video. I want to thank you for watching this one and my Arctic Challenge one. I had no idea that the Arctic Challenge one was going to explode the way that it did. I got so much more feedback and so many more watches than I ever could have anticipated. It was really, really astounding. So thank you so much for watching that. If you want, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe. And if you really, really want, I'd appreciate a follow over on Twitch. I love to stream these challenges and I love to talk to people when I'm doing them. And having some more company over there would not be amiss. But regardless if you do or don't, I appreciate it nonetheless. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I see you guys again soon.